The water hole has been the center of your world for as long as you can remember. Now it is a circle of cracked, curling mud. You press your palm into it, and nothing rises but dust. You look up, the sky is the same flawless, merciless blue it has been for months. No clouds, no promise, just heat and the slow, sinking understanding, though, that the rains are not coming. This is drought. Not a dry afternoon, but weeks, months, sometimes years, without enough water to live. And for almost all of human history, you could not turn a tap, dig a deep well, or wait for a truck to bring water in. When the water vanished, you faced one of the oldest, and deadliest threats your species has ever known. So how did anyone survive it? How did people with no pipes, no reservoirs, no technology hold on when the land itself dried up and tried to kill them? The answer is astonishing. Because not only did your ancestors survive droughts so severe they nearly wiped us out, those very droughts may have built the human mind you are using to watch this right now. Let's begin with just how bad it got, because the truth is almost hard to believe. Deep beneath the lakes of East Africa, scientists have drilled long cores of mud and sediment, layer upon layer, like reading the rings of a tree. A team studying Lake Malawi, led by researchers including Christopher Scholes and Andrew Cohen, pulled up a record of the climate, stretching back well over 100,000 years. And what they found was terrifying. Between roughly 135,000 and 75,000 years ago, East Africa went through what we now call megadroughts. Dry spells so extreme, they make modern droughts look gentle. Lake Malawi, one of the largest lakes on Earth, did not just shrink a little. It dropped by hundreds of meters, losing the vast majority of its water. Forests collapsed into scrubland. The land that had cradled humanity turned again and again into something close to a desert. So, picture your ancestors living through that. Not a season of hardship in that, but generation after generation in a world where the water could simply disappear for lifetimes. How does a fragile, thirsty animal survive that? This is where a scientist named Rick Potts, a paleoanthropologist at the Smithsonian, offers a startling idea. Working at a site in Kenya called Olorgesailie, where the layers of Earth record wild swings between wet and dry over hundreds of thousands of years, Potts proposed something called the variability selection hypothesis. The name sounds complex, but the idea is simple and beautiful. He argues that our ancestors were not shaped to fit one stable environment. They were shaped by instability itself. The humans who survived were the ones who could adapt, improvise, change their diet, change their tools, change their plans when the world kept pulling the rug out from under them. In other words, drought and chaos did not just threaten us. They may have selected for the single trait that defines us, our flexibility, our ability to think our way out of trouble. But a hypothesis is one thing. What did surviving an actual drought look like on the ground in a real human life? For that, travel to the southern tip of Africa, to a place called Pinnacle Point, and to the work of the archaeologist Curtis Marion. Marion studied a period very roughly 160,000 years ago when much of Africa was cold, dry, and brutally inhospitable. The kind of conditions that could have pushed early humans to the brink of extinction. And he argues that a small group of survivors found a refuge, a word that means a safe place, to wait out the bad times. That refuge was the coast. While the interior baked and starved, the southern shore offered something extraordinary: shellfish clinging to the rocks, and dense fields of plants with edible underground storage parts, roots and bulbs swollen with nutrients. The sea, in effect, became a pantry that did not depend on the rain. Marianne has suggested that nearly all of us today may descend from small populations that clung to coastlines like this one, eating from the ocean while the land was dying behind them. And humans did not only flee to where the water was, they learned to carry it. In a rock shelter in South Africa called Diepkloof, archaeologists, led by Pierre Jane Texier, found something humble and genius at once: of fragments of ostrich eggshells, around 60,000 years old, carefully engraved with patterns. An ostrich egg is enormous, and emptied out, its shell makes a tough, portable canteen that can hold about a liter of water. The engravings may have been ownership marks, a way of saying, "This one is mine." Think about what that means. Your ancestors were not just finding water, They were storing it, carrying it, labeling it, planning ahead for the dry stretch between one water source and the next. The sand peoples of the Kalahari, in more recent times, would even fill these eggshell canteens and bury them along their routes. Hidden caches of water waiting in the sand for a future journey across the dry country. So let's reconstruct a single moment of drought survival the way it might truly have felt. The local water is gone. The young ones are frightened, their lips cracked. But the oldest woman in your group, your grandmother, is not panicking. She has lived through dry years before, and she carries a map no one can see, a memory of the land built over a lifetime. She remembers a place half a day's walk away where water hides underground beneath a certain bend of dry river bed, where if you dig and wait, the sand slowly weeps clean water into the hole. She remembers which roots hold moisture, which melons store it. And so you walk carrying your engraved eggshells, following not a river, but a memory, the accumulated knowledge of generations who survived this exact nightmare before you. The drought is not beaten by strength. It is beaten by knowing. But here is the twist, and it is the deepest part of the whole story. Because the single most powerful drought survival tool your ancestors ever invented was not the eggshell canteen, or the buried water, or even the memory of hidden springs. It was each other. Study the Jubhoanzi people of the Kalahari, as the anthropologist Polly Weissner has done for decades, and you find a remarkable system with a name Axaro. On the surface, Axaro is simply gift-giving, the slow, ongoing exchange of small presents, a beaded necklace, a tool, a piece of clothing, between partners who may live far apart. It looks like friendship, and it is. But it is also something far more strategic. Each Axaro partner is a thread in a web of relationships that stretches across the landscape into other territories, other water sources, other bands. And when drought strikes your own land, when your waterhole turns to dust, those relationships become your lifeline. You are not trapped. You can travel to a partner's territory where the rain may have fallen and be welcomed, because years of gifts have made you family. The gifts were never really about the objects. They were insurance. A reservoir made not of water, but of trust. Sit with how profound that is. When the environment became unpredictable, humans did not just adapt their bodies or their tools. They built networks of obligation and kindness that spanned hundreds of miles wide, so that no single patch of dry ground could ever kill them all at once. The deepest answer to how ancient humans survived drought is this: they refused all to survive alone. They turned other people into a place to go when home failed, which leaves you with a strange mirror held up to your own life. You survive drought now through pipes, dams, and reservoirs, through engineering your ancestors could never have dreamed of. And it is easy to feel that this makes the old skills obsolete. But strip away the infrastructure, and the deep lesson has not changed at all. The thing that carried humanity through the mega droughts was not raw toughness. It was flexibility, the willingness to move, to improvise, or to change. It was knowledge, passed carefully from the old to the young. And above all, it was the web of relationships that meant that when your world ran dry, someone, somewhere would open their water to you. In an age of rising uncertainty, that may be the most useful inheritance your ancestors ever left you. The water hole is a circle of cracked, curling mud, and the sky is still that merciless blue. But you are not staring at it alone, and you are not staring at it empty-handed. You carry water on your back, a map of hidden springs in your mind, and 100 invisible threads of kinship reaching out across the dry land toward people who will take you in. Your ancestors looked at a dying world, and instead of breaking, they remembered, they moved, and they reached for each other. That is how they survived the drought. And in a quieter way, it is still how we survive everything.